Welcome to FTT Embedded Finance. Really excited to join the stage here. My name is Kevin Danino. I'm president of KCD PR. We are a strategic communications firm based in the US that services clients across all of the Fintech ecosystem. Really excited today to talk through the creator economy with our guest, Ashish Arya, from Pinterest. And so I'll flip it to you, Ashish, just to give a quick overview of your role at Pinterest and really what goes into it as well.
Sure, absolutely. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. And Kevin, thanks for hosting. It's great to be here today. My role at Pinterest is I lead global strategy and marketing for the financial services industry. And what that means is I get to develop our in-market strategy and narrative around why Pinterest is actually unique and differentiated for FinServ brands. I get to learn from millions of pinners, as we call them, around the world who come to the platform to be inspired, plan, and make financial decisions. In addition, I get to apply those learnings to help continuously advance our platform to meet the needs of all of our pinners and our financial services brands.
All right. Well, I am actually really excited to talk through this, and having a great brand like Pinterest here on stage, all the more better on that front. So to that end, when we think about creators, that topic of creators and influencers, it's obviously a very popular one, but can you tell us a little bit more about, why that is in terms of creators, influencers, and why it's such a popular buzzword these days?
Yeah, creators and influencers, it certainly is a buzzword. I think we're hearing it everywhere these days. And a few reasons for that. One, I think the COVID pandemic has really propelled this generational shift in the global workforce. And for many, all this time we spent at home working, learning, and creating became this proof point or concept that many needed to say, if I can do this on behalf of a company, I can do this on behalf of myself. There's this really interesting stat out there that I've seen that 29% of current American students actually are aspiring to become creators, not doctors, not lawyers, not marketers, but creators. And so what's happening on social platforms is that we are becoming the infrastructure upon which these creators are actually generating economic opportunities and actually being able to monetize their passions to make a living. Creators are driving this convergence of digital influence and e-commerce into what's being dubbed as social commerce. And I actually like to refer to this as sort of a 5-star effect, where we value this authentic opinion of others when it comes to making these online purchase decisions. So it's no surprise to any of us that creators are going to continue to play an increasing role in driving purchase online and specifically in social media.
Yeah, I mean, it really is fascinating. And I think with just the younger generations as well, wanting to become creators, and that data you point out is definitely fascinating. If we were to take a step back, Ashish, just in terms of, I want to make sure our audience really truly knows who Pinterest is. Clearly a well-known brand, but for the folks out there that might not know what the company does, give a quick sort of info dump, if you will, on the company, sort of its place and how sort of creators fit into that model as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start with kind of our mission. Pinterest is where people discover ideas for their life, right? To create a life that they love is the way we like to call it. Specifically for creators, the way we think about it is COVID kind of put our passions into perspective. And for many of us, there's no going back, right? Our passions are forefront of our lives. And creating lives we love isn't just a nice to have anymore, it's a must have for us. And so we at Pinterest are putting creators first. Creators manifest the future of social commerce on Pinterest. There's a stat, there's no lack of places people can go to be creators in the social space. A recent research from Antler showed that there was over 220 platforms that can help people turn their hobby into a paying profession. So there's no lack of places, but we do believe Pinterest has this unique place within the creator community. On Pinterest, creators actually help make Pinterest a safe place, an inspiring place, and an inclusive place. Anyone who creates content must read and agree to something we call at Pinterest the creator code before publishing an idea pin or joining as a creator. We ask every creator to agree to this code before they create anything on the platform. And what the creator code is it's basically a mandatory set of guidelines that live within our product, intended to educate and build community around making inclusive and compassionate content.
I think that's it. It is just it's a great platform to be creative on, and I think just for in our world in communications and marketing, when you have an idea or a concept and you want to sort of build out a board of ideas, I find it very helpful as well. And so when we kind of tie this back now to embedded finance and financial services as it pertains to Pinterest and your role, what are you seeing in terms of some of the kind of the trends or what's coming next within financial services when it comes to your team and looking at the industry as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what's really important for us as marketers and us in the financial services industry is that we really all know and pivot around this foundation that trust is the most important thing. It's the foundation of all good and healthy relationships, right? In the real world and in the business world, it's true as well. And so as we at Pinterest are thinking about the future of financial services industry and building a thriving long-term relationship with our customers and your customers, this point on trust is really vital. And so a stat that we got from pinners, people on Pinterest that are pinning around financial services and around life trigger moments, are saying that 88% say trust is necessary for them to build loyalty. And we've done a lot to actually focus on building trust with our customers, which are pinners. In the social sphere of all the main social competitors we have, all the social platforms that many of us, myself included, use every day, we're actually ranked number one in trust attributes such as brand safety, quality content standards, transparency, as well as reputation amongst all those competitors. So particularly relevant to this audience, I think, is the fact that pinners rank financial services content on Pinterest more trustworthy than all those competitors as well. So we're really focused on building trust with our pinners and building trust with your customers.
And related to that, Ashish, I think, knowing the world's really kind of been turned upside down. We're, a year and a half into the pandemic. What have you seen on the trend front, whether it's, different types of pins or angles on that front that have sort of changed or evolved, if you will, as the pandemic has kind of carried on and people might be home more or working remotely, et cetera?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, our mission is to bring everyone the inspiration to create a life they love. And so if you think about that in the context of kind of the world being turned upside down in the past year plus, Pinterest is where people discover ideas for their life and they can take action on these ideas. So in this past year and a half, what we've noticed is that people needed inspiration more than ever. And so it actually perfectly poised Pinterest to help people in this moment when they needed to kind of reimagine their lives a little bit. When people needed new ideas and they had to think differently, they came to Pinterest for these ideas and they came to Pinterest for inspiration. We actually had 100 million new pinners come to Pinterest over the last year, faster than we've grown in previous years. And the two groups in terms of audiences that grew the most on Pinterest in this last year out of that 100 million were men and Gen Z. And so we actually now have, after this last year, over 450 million people coming to Pinterest every month to discover ideas and actually create a life they love.
And related to that too, I think, what are you seeing in terms of financial services and brands and maybe how they've altered their marketing strategy utilizing your platform as well? Whether it's specifics, Ashish, or just examples of financial services firms doing it that way. Anything stand out?
Yeah, good question. So, to continue this theme of what we saw largely last year is that people were stuck inside, right? And so people themselves went inward. They worked on themselves and they know what they stand for now. And they're relying on our brands and brands in financial services to kind of follow suit. So what we've learned is that this positive context for brands and for financial services brands matter more than ever in this post-pandemic world we're in and we're continuing to enter. The majority of customers say they're more likely to remember financial services brands they encounter online when they're in a positive mindset, when they feel positive about what they're seeing. They're not doom scrolling social media, but they're feeling positive and they're uplifted with what they're doing. They're more likely to have a positive association with brands that show up in a positive environment. They're more likely to trust brands that show up in a positive space. And maybe the most urgent, they're more likely to purchase from a brand when they see it in this positive space. 8 in 10 people on Pinterest come to Pinterest because they say it makes them feel positive. And that stat is very starkly different on other social media. 3 in 10 say that on other social media platforms. It's that doom scrolling nature versus that positive environment that they're in. And people just inherently come to Pinterest to feel positive. Oftentimes we like to think of it as the last positive corner on the internet. And that's what Pinterest really stands for.
That's an interesting point, and yeah, I mean, it would be very difficult to doom scroll on Pinterest, no doubt, and appreciate the positivity. And I was going to ask you too, just in terms of some of your social media competitors, some of the larger names, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, et cetera, just in terms of sort of when it comes to marketing and maybe even specific to financial services, what you all are doing differently. Definitely noted on the positivity angle. That's a great point. Anything else stand out just in terms of what you're seeing from marketers when it comes to your platform versus, say, the competition as well?
Yeah, I think the main thing around differences is that if you think about the tense, past, current, present, and future, people use Pinterest in a very different way. And I'm active on many of our competitive social channels. I enjoy them thoroughly, but people use them very differently, right? People are using many social channels to post or see what people did past tense in the past. Many social channels that have been growing of recent, people are kind of, here's what's happening now, here's what's trending, here's the hashtag, here's kind of what is happening as in the current in pop culture. But Pinterest is really where, again, people are planning for the future. They're planning for what comes next. And if you think about life moments, big life moments, buying that next house, buying that next car, taking that next trip, and how those life moments around that people take the time and plan for are happening on Pinterest and are being planned for on Pinterest, and how important those are for financial services brands and clients, it makes Pinterest kind of this really unique place compared to our competitive set.
Yeah, absolutely. And, what advice would you have then to, whether it's a brand that maybe, is new to social or to your platform that's in the financial services space or banking or embedded finance, but, wants to better connect with their audience and maybe is looking to a Pinterest. What advice do you have for whether it's brands or even creators that are maybe new to the Pinterest platform in terms of getting started and really maximizing the efficiency, if you will, of the platform?
Yeah, the advice I'd give is that meet Pinners where they are. And what I mean by that is that people are using Pinterest to get ideas about things to buy, try, be, or to do in the future. And when brands and creators can insert themselves in that conversation, content from brands and creators come off to Pinners as being very additive to the experience. There is no Pinterest without brands and creator content. That is what people are looking for. So versus other places where content from brands or creators can sometimes be a little bit of an interruption, that content from brands and creators, and the advice I give them is come to Pinterest because your content will be additive to the experience, will be what people are looking for, and will really help people complete that next activity that they're looking to plan or to do.
And really, when it comes to creators as a whole, Ashish, I know you mentioned a pretty cool stat there. I believe you said it was like 46 or close to 50% of Gen Z now want to be a creator in this new economy, if you will. There's also this large trend too of, whether it's a labor shortage or people kind of reconsidering life decisions through the pandemic, et cetera. when it comes to Pinterest and how that you guys are thinking about your creator strategy, what's evolved or what's changing in terms of its own creator strategy?
Yeah. So that stat earlier is 29% to bring it back. 29% of people, of American students, are looking to become creators versus kind of traditional roles.
A huge number. Still a huge number.
It's a huge number, and has grown really fast over the last year. But to answer your question, kind of what sets creators apart on Pinterest, how are we different in this space? I think, taking a lot of the things I said earlier, it really comes to life for creators. And what I mean by that is that creators on Pinterest actually sit at this intersection where expertise means influence. And those two things together are really valuable, right? This is why we don't call them influencers on Pinterest, because they're not just there to influence. They're also experts in their space, and they're creating content because they are experts in this space. And this makes them a trusted voice that inspires action, which is what our pinners are looking for. Creators help people turn inspiration into action. Inspiration is as much about, discovering a new idea as it is about taking action. When creators share their ideas on Pinterest, they reach people who are looking for inspiration, people who want to discover and try it, not just, watch for entertainment purposes.
And I know you mentioned too, before we got on, that the company's recently put out some news as it relates to the Pinterest Predicts report. Can you tell conference goers a little bit more about that report and some of the details around that, Ashish?
Yeah, absolutely. So the data on Pinterest is really powerful. As we've been talking about, people are planning what's new. They're planning what's next. They're planning their future. They're making decisions about tomorrow, next week, or next month. So as a result, we at Pinterest have the earliest indication about not what already happened, but what's about to happen. And that level of insight about where people are heading next is really valuable to our brand partners and creators on Pinterest. So what we've done is we've used this disaggregated data to say, what are things that are not huge yet, but are going to be massive over the course of the next 6 months or year? And we did the same thing in 2019, heading into 2020. And I think we can all agree 2020 was the most unpredictable year of all time. And yet we looked back at the predictions we made, and we got 80% of the predictions correct. So the data is really robust. Anybody on this call can go to pinterestpredicts.com and play around with our predictions and see things that are not yet massive, but we predict are about to spike and take advantage of these trends to come. And I want to add as well, we're going to be releasing our 2022 predictions in just a few months later this year. And I think those will be really interesting for the group, specific for financial services and the broader marketing space as well.
I appreciate that, and do make sure everyone to check that out. Ashish, I appreciate the time. This has been a fun chat, and for our conference goers, I know we're wrapping up the day here, but the two of us will be more than happy to stick around for a lively Q&A here on the chat. So if you do have any questions, feel free to pop them into the chat box here within the screen, and we'll do our best here to answer your questions. And without further ado, really appreciate the time today, Ashish. It was interesting. Pinterest is definitely doing some really cool things out there. Thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was great.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, and look forward to hopefully wrapping up a wonderful and eventful day here at FTT Embedded Finance. Thanks, all. Take care.